Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. So, I got woke up around about 3:30, 4 o'clock from a dream, and the dream that I was having, it was heavy. It was a using dream. I was dreaming that I was, bouncing from house to house, moving around in the middle of the night, sniffing coke, taking drugs, but in this dream, I never seem to be taking the drug. I'm so aware that I am using, that I'm back in that old lifestyle, doing what I used to do when I was taking drugs. It's in the middle of the night. Can't really tell you who I'm with, but I know I'm with, some undesirables, and I'm walking the streets and I'm bouncing from house to house. There's things going on in the background. I couldn't really focus on this dream. When I woke up this morning, I thought, what was that about? But I just knew that I was, I was off me nut, and I was doing things that I shouldn't be, and I remember sitting up and thinking, whoa, and I had this overwhelming feeling that I was out, that I was using. I looked around the room and I sees my wife live next to me. I get up, goes to the toilet, and I thought, wow, I screwed my face, and I realised that, it was just a dream. I suppose I'm telling this story and I'm sharing this because, I've woke up, understanding where I am, understanding what I've had to overcome, I know I need to be more vigilant around, more consistent and more vigilant around, my triggers, my urges, this disease of addiction that I suffer with, that I have, and understand that I am the problem. It's not the substance. Drugs aren't the problem. Using wasn't the problem. Well, using was the problem, but I am the problem. Everything else is just a solution. Drugs were just a solution for me to be able to try and fix myself around. But now I know the solution for me is God. My Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is the only thing, that sets me free from this. Speaking to open-minded people who've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. There's so many people in my life now that I seek inspiration from, that are still battling on, overcoming addiction every single day. People who are there for me. People don't want anything from me but just to share, they're there to let me vent off, talk, give me suggestions back, tell me, no, that's not good, yes, that's good, tell me what people who are telling me what I need to hear instead of what I want to hear. There's so many people in my life now that, make it very easy, very, very easy to get through my day, very easy to be able to, understand, I'm not alone, how this works, how fellowship works. Fellowship is very easy for me. All it takes is for me to pick the phone up, and there's so many people in my book now, in my phone book, where I can just go pop, and share my shit and be honest and be open and be vulnerable. That's one of the main things for me, having the ability to be vulnerable. I wasn't always capable of doing that, learning these things, surrender to win and get vulnerable when it's safe to do so. Some of this stuff, I just seen as weakness. I didn't have the ability to see past my nose, to understand, ego, pride and ego will kill you. Pride and ego will have you falling off, and the moment I can bury all this and change all that, I become humble, I become honest, I become vulnerable. I have the ability now to be humbled, I suppose. Yeah, anyway, God bless. Take care, guys.